Good morning. Oh, I hope this video finds you well. I woke up with a bit of a plan in my head after rerouting from last night's, a fail on making ravioli from pre-made pasta dough. What I decided to do with the fillings instead was to make some pocket pies. I have a go-to pizza dough that I use for a variety of dishes. It's nice and springy. I usually use bread flour, but this time around I'm just using all-purpose flour. So I have not made this pizza dough in quite a few years. It's not that I don't love it. I love making bread so much. The smells of it, like right now, the yeast is proofing under this bowl, and it just fills the kitchen with just nostalgia, and it makes my mouth water. I love bread, and especially fresh bread hot out of the oven. So anyways, we have a couple of things going on here. This video will be in two parts. First part is mixing the dough, and then you shape it and then cover it and let it rest for an hour until it doubles in size. And then I'm going to basically portion these out, make a filling, and I think I might go, I'm rerouting completely from the ravioli plan, and I'm going to make a beef, like Italian beef flavor or filling with the ricotta mixture as well. And so we'll take it step by step. But thank you again for joining me, and hopefully this works out. It's been a long time. One of my favorite parts about making bread is you can feel it. It's alive. I use active dry yeast. The original recipe from years ago, decades ago, calls for fresh yeast, and I have not been able to find that in a grocery store in years. I'm sure if I keep looking hard enough, I would find it, but I am quite used to using the active dry yeast as a result. It's not instant. It's, a little bit different on that front, but it's something that I do keep in stock. So let's see. It looks like it proofed. Proofing your yeast is just activating it, so you know it's alive. It grows, and that's what creates the is it the carbon dioxide? It releases the gas that allows the bread to puff up. It's the leavening process. Sorry if I'm jumbling that a little bit. So we can tell that this yeast is quite alive. It's nice and foamy on top. It's not as foamy as it can be because this yeast is actually, it's a new package, but it did expire a year ago. It's been sealed and kept in a dark place, and once you open yeast, you want to keep it refrigerated or in a dark place to prolong its life. But basically this is a half a cup of lukewarm water, not too hot because that kills the yeast, but it's lukewarm water with a teaspoon of sugar. You let that dissolve, then you add 2 teaspoons of the active dry yeast, give it a good stir, cover, and let it sit for 10 minutes. And if I didn't get this puffiness or this activation, then the yeast would be dead, and that just means you throw it out and buy a fresh package and start over. So this is good news. So let's go ahead and get rolling here. So if this dough recipe, it makes enough to make 4 medium pizzas. But when I make pizza or pie pockets, savory pie pockets, I divide it into 12. And yeah, you'll see how that happens a little bit later. So I've got everything kind of set up here. I have 5 cups of flour sifted and measured out, and also 1 cup plus a quarter cup of lukewarm water mixed with 2 teaspoons of salt. Now I do know that the salt interferes with the leavening process. And so I've heard that if you dissolve the salt in the water, that kind of staves that off a little bit. It levels out the flavor. And if you add the salt too soon, like if I were to add the salt to the flour immediately, it would likely kill the yeast. You know, with breads, I have not traditionally been super experimental because it uses a lot of ingredients, and a fail is a fail, and it's a large waste, and I try to be mindful of that. So put a little pressure on myself to do it this way. But when at the end of the day, I will have a lovely dough to be able to use. And the other nice thing is this dough recipe freezes beautifully. So if you want to use, for the full batch, if you want to divide it into 4 balls, reserve a couple of balls for pizza. You can just seal them completely and keep them frozen for up to 3 months. Defrost, fully before you use it, obviously. But you could also make pizza fresh from this process. The whole thing takes about an hour and a half or so. So you can also retard the dough, is what it's called. And that's where you prepare the balls, you let it rise, and then if you're not going to use it immediately, you can pop it into the fridge, and it will keep, it won't continue to rise, but it also won't continue to ferment. One of my biggest goals is to get into sourdough bread making, and I have a friend who is brilliant at it, brilliant, and oh my gosh, she just made a chocolate sourdough loaf the other day, and my jaw dropped. It was just beautiful. So I'd love to get into that more. And as I said, I am carving more time out of my schedule to do some baking. I'm making some pastries. My daughter's birthday is coming up, and I'm going to be making her cake, and I quite love it. It just does take a lot of time, a lot of space, and I'm just ready to jump back into it. So let's get going here. We're going to go ahead and add the flour to the yeast mixture here. Let's see. First, we're going to add the salt in the water. I have my magic fork. You could certainly do this in a stand mixer if you like, with a bread or a dough hook, but I kind of like the old school ways. It just feels amazing in the hands. My oldest memories of dough and the smell of yeast was my great-grandmother, actually. When we would visit her house, she always made bread, and she also made the most incredible cinnamon rolls. And her house it smelled like yeast. I didn't really understand what that was as a child, but it's really kind of comforting for me. Hello, McFluffin. Yes, ricotta is cheese. It's a soft, quite flavorful, and versatile. One thing I think I might do is make a pie pocket out of my pie crust dough and use that as a filling with some pie filling. Make kind of a nice sweet pie. Oh, let's see. Fierno Selic, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hello, I am making pizza dough. It has been a while. So we'll see how good I am once it gets to the kneading here. All right. A little extra flour to turn it onto the cutting board. Oh, pardon me, oh, that's nice and warm. Very nice. hands here for a bit. Form it into a ball. If you have a cutting board, a lot of people like to do this on a big plate. You can also knead in a bowl if you want to, and sometimes I like to do that, but today I thought, why not get a little messy with the flour. It's a great workout. Last time I made this dough, I was actually working in the mountains, and I have a vivid memory of coming home from a had a blizzard that night. So it was a busy day of shoveling and clearing spaces at the ski school, and I was so exhausted, but I was trying to make something special for dinner. And yeah, I remember my arms being pretty tired last time. Okay. Now, if you're using a cutting board that is not like this, where it just sticks well or stays in place, you can wet a tablecloth, or pardon me, you can wet a washcloth and put it underneath the cutting board, and that'll keep it in place. So we're going to knead for about 8 minutes, and it really comes down to feel, actually. Because it looks like a hard garbled mess, and it actually is quite hard or firm. But as you get going, you're building the elasticity, that you're building up the gluten, and eventually you'll get to a point where it's just nice and soft, pliable, and you'll literally just feel it when it's ready. I have never done this on these new cutting boards. It's a little slippy, slidey, but not too bad. I do not edit my videos, but if I were editing, this is the part where I would zip, 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 zip right through it. Just keep at it. What I ended up doing with those leftover pasta sheets that I was going to use for the ravioli, I ended up just cutting them up into nice thick strands, and we had a little bit of just pasta marinara for dinner instead of the ravioli. I have seen over the years so many videos. I geek out on cooking videos, and I love watching, oh gosh, the old world traditional techniques. And these folks, ladies, a lot of them grandmas, they make fresh bread and pasta every day and are so practiced at it. They just have a neat setup, a neat routine, and everything they do just turns out so beautifully. I imagine it tastes amazing in a lot of ways. Those little ladies little old Czech ladies is what I call it, or little old Polish ladies, have taught me or given me so much inspiration over the years. You see how it's getting firm, or it is quite firm. As that's the gluten starting to work. Use your heel or the heel of your hand to kind of dig in. You can see how this is so much easier with a stand mixer and a dough hook. I've actually never made dough with a dough hook. Come to think of it, maybe I'll give that a whirl. I can smell that wonderful yeast though. And it gets warm as you keep going, so I'm feeling heat. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter. Thank you for joining me again. A little weather update in the Pacific Northwest. Temps are 40s, 50s. It's been a little breezy, quite breezy at night. But the sky keeps hinting that it wants to clear up a little bit. But yeah, it's in general been a pretty unusual winter. We got snow all last week. It wasn't a ton of snow, but it was enough to impact the city, the roads, school late starts, that type of thing. And that's definitely different compared to years past, especially at sea level. Yeah, these ladies that I've watched cook or make dough, they get leverage. You know, I saw one that she stood on a stool so she could dig down into it. So I'm kind of on my tippy toes as I'm going here. And it gets harder before it gets easy. So even in this short period of time, looked like I was struggling. But now I'm feeling it kind of start to relax and soften up. You can probably see that. We've got 2 minutes left. We can certainly go longer, depending on the feel. Good heavens. Sorry about all the ads on the radio this morning. I was hoping for a little bit more music. Gotta love how they fast forward all the disclosures at the end. Smells so good. So you understand too, when you're kneading, you want to try to keep your elbows straight and go down into it. Conserve your energy. we are. There we go. So you see, there's a little bit of a spring. That's going to change. Once it has an hour to rise. Okay. So, people will use cling film to cover. I have in the past popped this into an oiled bowl and covered it. You want to keep the warmth in there, so I'm just going to cover it with a tea towel here and time it for an hour, and then I'll be dividing it up. So that's part one. Really goes really quickly. So I am going to finish my tea, set a timer for an hour, and then come back. But thanks for joining me in this first bit. We'll see you again here in a moment. Oh, pardon me. I'd seen comments. Very strong woman. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that. I'll use my hands for everything I do, and if God willing, I keep the strength in my hands. I appreciate that. How am I filming with my telephone? Well, I have a nifty little stand that I just have set up above my stove. And I'm sorry for there's a lot of action going on that phone all the time, so you're probably hearing little bing bongs here and there. But it seems to work, and it keeps the perspective the same every time. A little consistency. It makes it just easy to film. Thank you for joining me. I hope to see you all again here in about an hour. Cheers.